Hi, here we are, Monday morning for our read aloud, which will happen today at noon, Wednesday at noon, and Thursday at noon. We've been reading The World According to Humphrey. It's about a hamster who is a pet in a classroom and his adventures. Uh, his cage is not securely locked, so he's able to get out of his cage and move about the room on his own, and he tries to communicate by squeaking, and sometimes people seem to understand what he's squeaking about. The book is by Birney, and it's a series, and we do have the series at the library. So let's see where we are. Humphrey waited until school was completely quiet. No students, no teachers, no Mr. Morales. Mr. Morales is the principal. Then I got busy. I had a lot of work to do. Big work for a small hamster. First, I took the Moonlighters Club clipping out of my notebook. The janitor who comes in every evening to hang out with Humphrey is sad because he doesn't have any friends to spend time with because all his friends work during the day and he works at night. So Humphrey found an article about a club for people who work at night. And he has to get the information to Aldo. First, I took the Moonlighters clip, that's the information, out of my notebook, and holding it in my mouth, I opened the lock that doesn't really lock and scurried across the table. Getting down off that table was still a problem. I grabbed hold of the leg and I slid down as I've done before. It makes me feel a little queasy in my tummy, but it would be worthwhile if Aldo could get a friend. I turned over the big machine, which was very high off the ground, and it seemed impossible for me to get up there. But I had it all planned out. Crawl up the wastebasket. Oh, I don't know, it'd sway like that, and leap over the seat of Mrs. Brisbane's chair, the teacher. Whoa, slippery. Crawl up the rungs to the chalkboard, and along the chalkboard to the bookcase. The hardest part, the dive from the bookcase to the overhead projector cart. Now you are too young to know what an overhead projector is, but it was sort of like in the olden days it was what we call now a smart board, but not as fancy. I was practically home free, but I still had to get up to the light up part. Still holding the newspaper clipping in my mouth, I grabbed onto a big screw sticking out of the side and I pulled myself up. Then I reached up as high as I could, and I just barely managed to touch the top. Good thing I've got big muscles because I was able to pull myself up. I was there. It was like climbing Mount McKinley, which is the tallest mountain peak in the United States. I quickly pushed the switch. I wish I had some sunglasses because suddenly I was surrounded by a blinding light. It was like being inside a light bulb. I took the newspaper clipping out of my mouth and I carefully laid it on the flat glass. Then I looked up at the wall and no. Up on the screen was a picture of a car. And behind it there was a jumbled up backward writing. I realized I must have laid the clipping on the glass upside down. I quickly turned it over and there it was, all the information about the Moonlighters Club, right there on the wall with the outline of the car behind it. Aldo would be coming home soon, so I hurried back to the cage. It was easier getting back because it was downhill until the very end when I had to swing my way up to the cord to the blinds and back to the table. I was breathing pretty hard by the time I closed my cage door behind me. I didn't have time to catch my breath before Aldo came in. Whoa, what's that? He entered. He saw the projector. That could overheat. I squeaked. Look at the wall. Look up at the wall. But my words only sounded like hamster peeps. Aldo didn't waste a second. He flicked the machine off. Oh, all that work for nothing. But then a funny thing happened. Aldo turned the machine back on and looked up at the wall. What's this? He said. Hey, a nice car. Look, Humphrey. The Moonlighters Club for people who work at night, like me. Oh, said Humphrey. I was so exhausted from all that effort. Aldo stared at the big ad on the wall for a while, and then he turned off the projector and he went to work and never mentioned it again. Well, I was annoyed I had failed, but at least I had tried, which was more than I can say for one of my classmates. Yes, Saya Nasiri. With my own furry ears, I had heard her promise Mrs. Brisbane that she would raise her hand in class. She was so shy. So far, she had been as quiet as a statue. Her week was almost up. Even though I had scolded her the day she fed me, she paid no more attention to me than she had to her teacher. I wanted to say, you really should listen to your teacher, even Mrs. Brisbane, and you should always listen to your hamster. I was worried about Aldo and Saya too, but I have to admit, my journey that night had been so tiring. Even though nocturnal or not, I slept the rest of the night, which is usually when I'm awake. The next day began in a very surprising way. I have something to share with you all, Mrs. Brisbane said. She held up a postcard with a picture of some colorful parrots perched in lush green trees. The postcard was from Miss McNamara. Remember the old teacher? Greetings to my favorite class of the world, room 26. I'm now working in a school in Brazil. This country is beautiful and friendly. I really enjoyed talking with the parrots in the rainforest. I miss you all, especially my pal, Humphrey the hamster. Happy, happy, happy did that make me? Not only did Miss Mac remember me, she missed me, and I missed her too. Especially every time I looked at Mrs. Brisbane and she just glared at me. My head was so filled with memories of Miss Mac that I only got a 75 on my vocabulary test. After we graded the test, Mrs. Brisbane said, if you got 100 on the test, please raise your hand. Oh, that woke me up. That's a really good way to get Sarah to raise her hand because she always got 100%. Two kids raised their hand. Sarah just sat and stared at her desk. I was starting to get really mad at her. When it was time for map work, Mrs. Brisbane clicked on the overhead projector, and there it was. The Moonlighters Club, the ad projected on the blackboard. Mrs. Brisbane wrinkled her nose, picked up the paper, and looked at both sides. Then she held it up to the light, and I think maybe she noticed my little tiny teeth marks. She looked over at my page and wrinkled her nose again. She crumpled the paper and threw it into the wastebasket. She's smart, but she's also mean. And she's not the only one. When she went on with the map work, one of the kids started making some very rude noises. Mrs. Brisbane didn't even turn around. But when someone started giggling, she said, "Stop giggling, Gail." So then Garth's rude noises got ruder and louder and ruder and louder. Suddenly the teacher, Mrs. Brisbane, spun around to face them. "Very well, the whole class will stay in during recess for extra vocabulary words." Everybody groaned. "It's Garth's fault," said Heidi. "Raise your hand," Mrs. Brisbane snapped back. "You will all stay in during recess unless the person making those noises wants to step forward and admit it." Nobody said a word, but everybody glared at Garth. "Okay, I did it," he said. "Raise your hand," Heidi said. "Very well, Garth. You, Heidi, and Gail will stay in during recess." Heidi and Gail protested until the bell rang, but all three of them had to stay in instead of going to recess. Instead of making them do extra work, though, Mrs. Brisbane let them rest their heads on their desks. After that, she lectured them about their behavior. All this commotion made me, Humphrey, a little hungry, and for some reason, nobody had fed me yet. So I decided to squeak up for myself. Mrs. Brisbane turned and looked at me and said, I don't need any trouble out of you either. Heidi said, I don't think he's been fed today. So Garth fed me. Then she told the girls to go out and play. So she wasn't completely mean anyway. She even trusted Garth to be alone in the room while she took some papers to the principal's office. I had always liked Garth, so I was surprised when he started grumbling at me as he filled the water bottle and put some fresh food in my cage. One of these days, he said, you'll get in trouble too. I'll see to that. Huh? I squeaked. Everybody hates me, but they all love you. You're just a rat in disguise. Wow, those words hurt me a lot. Why would Garth say that? I mean, sure, almost everybody does love me, but I don't make rude noises and I don't get other people into trouble. I was still thinking about Garth's behavior when the rest of the class came back after recess. Mrs. Brisbane must have gotten rested up during the recess because she gave them a big smile and said, I have a surprise for you. Well, surprises always get their attention. They think they're always good. However, I know that surprises are sometimes bad, like the day Miss Mack left me forever. We're going to pick who gets to take Humphrey home for the weekend. Now, you all know whether or not your parents gave permission for him to come home with you. So if you would like Humphrey this weekend, raise your hand. Hey, 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 you should have seen all the hands that went up. I could hardly believe my eyes. Yay. Sarah, do you think it'll be all right with your parents? And she nodded her head. And Mrs. Brisbane said, I can't hear you, Sarah. Sarah said, yes, ma'am. It was strange to hear her voice in the classroom. Mrs. Brisbane gave her a note and said, you have to bring it back on Friday. I took a nap the rest of the day, but whenever I woke up and looked at Sarah's desk, I saw her doing something I had never seen her do before. Smile. Tip number 6 from the book Guide to the Care and Feeding of Hamsters. You can leave your hamster alone for a day or two. Otherwise, find a good caretaker or, if possible, take your hamster with you. In his own cage, a hamster can be very portable. Next chapter, Sarah speaks up. Chapter 7. On Friday afternoon, Sarah's father, Mr. Nasiri, picked us up after school. He had a friendly smile and gentle eyes, but he was as quiet as his daughter. Sarah lived in a tall building, so Mr. Nasiri carried my cage up 1, 2, 3 flights of stairs to their clean and quiet apartment. Mrs. Nasiri opened the door for us. She spoke to her husband and daughter, but I couldn't exactly understand what they were saying. And then I heard a little voice say, Hummy, Hummy. And Sarah's little brother, Derek, toddled toward the door. Sarah said, say Humphrey. Hummy, Hummy, he said. The Nasiris put my cage in the living room, right in the middle of a big table. Then they pulled up chairs so we could all sit and stare into my cage. It seemed as if they were waiting something to happen. So I decided to give them a show. First, I took a twirl on my wheel for a while. Then I climbed up the side and dived down into a pile of soft paper. They were pretty impressed. The funny thing is, I couldn't understand a word they were saying. No wonder Sarah gets 100% on all her vocabulary tests. She and her family know a lot more words than I do. They finally went to the kitchen to eat dinner. Later, while the rest of the family watched television, Sarah's mom sat quietly by my cage watching me. She seemed nice. Eventually, it was bedtime for the family. But after the lights were out, Sarah slipped out of her room and came back to my cage and whispered to me. This time I could understand her. She said, you know my secret, Humphrey? Now you know. My family doesn't speak English. Well, my dad does a little, but he's shy about it, and Mom doesn't know any English at all, and Derek's too little. I understand, I squeaked. That's why I don't like to talk in class. I don't talk like the other kids. I'm afraid they're going to laugh at my accent. That happened to me when I was little. But you don't sound different. I was frantically trying to squeak to her. You sound just fine. Unfortunately, Sarah didn't understand my squeaks. I guess maybe I have an accent too, but I have an idea that maybe could help me teach my mom English, Sarah said. And I squeaked back to her, if I can help out, I will. You're a real friend, Sarah said. See, she did understand me. The next day, I dozed until late afternoon when Sarah led her mom back to the cage. And she said to her mom, Humphrey only stands English, Mama. Speak English, say Humphrey. Her mom looked a little frightened, but she tried and said, Humphrey. Hummy, said Derek. No, said Sarah to her mom. Hello, Humphrey. Mrs. Nasiri said, hello, Humphrey. And I squeaked hello right back at her, and she broke into a big smile. Things went really well from that minute on. In a matter of hours, Sarah's mom was saying, how do you do? Nice to meet you. Would you like some water? And I squeaked back, yes, thank you. Mrs. Desiri kept on talking even when Sarah and Derek went to the store with the dad, and I let her know that I understood what she was saying by wiggling my whiskers and hanging by one paw from the top of my cage. That would be fun to see. Good boy, Humphrey, she said. Sarah and her father were amazed at Mrs. Nasiri's progress when they returned, and the rest of the night the family spent time practicing English. First, Sarah pretended to be a guest at the door, and she knocked, and her mother opened the door and said, hello, Sarah, in English. Won't you come in? Then Derek went and knocked. Mrs. Nasiri opened the door and said, hello, Derek, won't you come in? He was a baby. He rushed in and toddled right over to the table and said, Humphrey, Humphrey. Next, Sarah convinced her dad to practice English with her mom. She tried by saying, what time is it? And Sarah said, she started out by saying, what time it is? And Sarah corrected her and said, no, you say, what time is it? And she got it right the second time. Then she said, would you like some tea? To Mr. Desiri, and he said, yes, I would like some tea. And guess what? We had a tea party right at my table. As a reward for all their hard work, I spun on my wheel as fast as my legs would go. They all cheered. Later, the lights went out, and Sarah came to talk to me again, and she said, thank you, Humphrey. My mom says she's ready to go to English class now, but I wish you were the teacher. So do I, squeaked Humphrey, and I meant it. There were more English lessons on Sunday, and Sarah showed Derek how to clean out my cage. I don't know, he seems kind of little to be cleaning out a cage. Suddenly he began to giggle. Humphrey poop, he said. Yeah, I did. His English was getting better too. On Sunday night, Sarah gathered her family together and said, I want to teach you an American song. And she opened her mouth and began to sing, Oh, Say Can You See, by the dawn's early light. I stood up just like we do in the classroom when we all sing the Star-Spangled Banner. But I'd never heard it like that before. Sarah has the most beautiful voice. It was like a gentle breeze. It was beautiful. If only our classmates could hear her. That gave me another idea. But I didn't have much time to think at all because soon the whole family was singing the Star-Spangled Banner, and I squeaked right along with them. When we got back to school on Monday, I was a little disappointed. Mrs. Brisbane asked Sarah, how did things go over the weekend? Fine, said Sarah, and nothing more. You know, you can learn a lot about yourself by getting to know another species. That Monday, I sat in my cage worrying about Sarah for quite a while before I dozed off. When I woke up, I noticed that room 26 had changed. The bulletin board was covered with brightly colored leaves. The top of the chalkboards were covered with big paper witches and ghosts and skeletons, and hanging from the light fixtures were black crepe paper bats. Then I looked to my right, and there was a horrible, huge orange face with an evil grin staring at me. What is that? I thought. Hey, Humphrey, don't you like old Pumpkinhead? That's a jack-o'-lantern, said AJ. Oh, look, said Garth. Humphrey's scared of a little old jack-o'-lantern. Scaredy cat, scaredy hamster. I stood up straight and I looked as unscared as I could. Quiet, Garth and AJ, said Mrs. Brisbane. Then she returned to the math problem. Suddenly I noticed a little movement. I looked over. Yes, 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 Sarah had her hand up. Everybody noticed it, except Mrs. Brisbane. She had her back to us. She was writing on the blackboard. Mrs. Brisbane, Heidi said. Without turning around, Mrs. Brisbane said, raise your hand, Heidi. Now Heidi had her hand raised as well as Sarah. Well, what is it? She said. And when she turned around, she was so surprised at what she saw. Yes, Sarah, she said. In a loud, clear voice, Sarah said, can I move the pumpkin away from Humphrey's cage? Mrs. Brisbane looked from Sarah to the cage and back and said, yes, I guess it is a little too close. Thank you, Sarah. And then Sarah rose, hurried to my table to push that ugly old jack-o'-lantern away. She didn't say a word, but she winked at me, and I knew what she meant. Heidi, did you want to say something too? No, not anymore, said Heidi. Everything went back to normal until the bell rang for recess. And Garth came to my cage again and said, scaredy cat. Then he moved that pumpkin right up against my cage again. I puffed up my cheeks as big as I could get them to show him that I was brave. It was going to be a very long day. Tip number 7, when hamsters feel intimidated, to show that they want to be brave, they puff up their cheeks, from the book Guide to the Care and Feeding of Hamsters. And that's the end of chapter 7. It looks like chapter 8 is about Halloween. And I know all of you like Halloween because our Halloween books go out all year long, even when it's not Halloween. And we're getting ready to be able to have you request books, but it's going to take us a little bit of time to get everything in order before that will happen. But we'll let you know as soon as that's possible, because we are really looking forward to being able to share our books with you again, share your books with you again, because people ask me, who owns the library? I say, you do. All of you in the community of South Orange, it's your library, you own it. So as soon as we can, we'll reach out and let everybody know when they'll be able to request books. Okay, so this is the end of Monday's Read Aloud with Miss Beth, and we'll be back again on Wednesday for chapter 8, which is called Trick or Treats. Thank you, bye.